a year ago, the Holy Spirit, out of graciousness and kindness, called me away from a tenured endowed chair at Columbia Theological Seminary to a little place called Prairie Village Presbyterian Church, which sounds like it's a little church in a village on the prairie. And it's actually a big suburban church in Kansas City. We're a little over 5,000 members. I'm one of 7 pastors on the staff, and my role, as you heard Susan tell you, is adult educational ministries. And it's been a little over a year, and it's been an incredible journey thus far. So I'm grateful for the invitation to join you. This really is supposed to be a conversation. I backed away years ago from presentations, from lectures. Last year I was at the First Presbyterian Church of Savannah, where they have a memorial lecture series at a time in our life together, and this is what Presbyterians love to do, when persons who had money gave money to the church to endow a lecture series so that they could bring in speakers who would lecture, which of course every Presbyterian loves to come to lectures and hear whatever is going to be said. The unfortunate thing was the faithful family whom the Lord blessed and gave much resources, they shared it with the church, but the unfortunate thing is their last name, the surname, is Deadly. And it didn't hit me until the senior pastor, Stephen, got up and said, "Our deadly lecturer this year." And it just hit me. And I just started giggling in the chancel. And it's one of those where you want to stop but you can't. And so I was privileged to deliver the lecture series at First Presbyterian Church of Savannah. I decided we're not going to lecture anymore. It really is going to be a conversation, because part of the shift in the 21st century church is that you and I are not spectators, we are participants in the worship of God. Amen? So this is participation, this is a conversation. So what I want to do is have some conversation with you about some of the waters in which we're swimming. I am confident this is not going to be new to a number of you. Some of this has been put forward by the media in significant numbers. Any of us who are paying attention to what's happening to Christendom in the United States is well aware of some of this. I want to talk briefly about a schema that Doug Paget, who arguably is one of the founders of the first emerging church out of Minneapolis in the United States about 25 years ago, Doug Paget has put forward a schema for what it means to be a church in the 21st century, and then I want to end up with 8 trends that are changing and challenging the nature of ministry. So, the first conversation piece is going to be about the waters in which we are swimming. This is the Pew Forum on Religion and Public Life. This data was released 5 years ago. They have updated it twice since then, but they have not done the full scope of research that they did preparing for the 2012 survey. They asked adults in the United States. It was representative sampling, which means they covered geography, they covered racial and ethnic heritage, they covered ethnicity, they covered class, etc. They asked them, what is your religious affiliation? What is your religious affiliation? The definition of that is up to the individuals who responded. Sometimes they would ask, what do you mean by religious affiliation? Their answer was, whatever you think it means, whatever you want to say it means. As soon as a researcher defines something for the subject, it taints the data. So they just said whatever you think it means. So the Pew Forum on Religion and Public Life compared this to their major research piece in 1990. In 1990, the top bar is Roman Catholic. That deep blue bar is Roman Catholic. In 1990, Roman Catholics, adults among the United States, self-identified as affiliated with the Roman Catholic Church, was about 26%. If you look down to 2012, they're actually not far off. They're pretty close. 24%, 25%. It's very clear that the only reason the Roman Catholic Church in the United States is holding its own is what? Immigration pattern of Hispanics, Asians, and Africans. That is the only reason the Roman Catholic Church is holding its own as a percentage of adults who claim Roman Catholic Church affiliation in the United States. If you take out the recent immigration pattern for Latinos, Asians, and Africans, the Roman Catholic Church is shrinking faster than Presbyterians. Okay? Next bar down, it's the Baptists, any kind of flavor of Baptists. The vast majority of them were whom? Thank you, those are the only ones that Jesus saved. So, the Southern Baptists, right? My father grew up as the wrong kind of Baptist. My father is retired Presbyterian pastor from the Japanese Presbyterian Church of Seattle. He grew up as an American Baptist. Southern Baptists don't consider American Baptists to be real Baptists. But any Baptist, including the National Baptist Convention, which is an historic African-American denomination, if they said Baptist NBC USA, ABC USA, Southern Baptist Convention, SBC, they went into the Baptist category. Interestingly enough, between 1990 and 2012, the number it's going down. In fact, for the last 3 years, consecutive Southern Baptist Convention in the United States has been in decline in number of baptisms. And there are major concerns as to why they're declining. For years they have been growing, and suddenly they're declining. Next bar down is that light blue is the mainline Christian. Who is that? Go. Us. Lutherans. United Methodists. Episcopalians. United Church of Christ, Disciples of Christ also. Those are the mainline Christians, right? That's not a surprise to you. In 1990, about 19, almost 20% of the population said they were a mainline Christian category. In the year 2012, that had dropped to just over 12.5%. That is not a surprise. There's a clear correlation, not causal, thank you, Jesus, but a clear correlation between educational attainment and birth rate. The more educated you are, the more degrees you have, the fewer children. It's not causal, it's not an excuse, right? But the more degrees you have, the fewer children you have, okay? And among Presbyterians, we have some of the highest numbers of degrees in our pews. We are not the most degreed people in the United States. Who are the most degreed people? Who have more degrees than Presbyterians? No, we're smarter than Episcopalians. Come on, who? No, the Orthodox? No, thank you. Good guess. Thank you, Madam Moderator. But no, not that. UCC? Oh, come on. UCC? Seriously? Look around. Seriously? Come on. It's a small group. Unitarians. I thought Unitarians also, but yeah, there it is. The Vice Moderator says it. Philadelphia Yearly Meeting. Society of Friends. They have more degrees than we do. We overtook Episcopalians 3 years per capita ago in terms of degrees. So we are not as smart as the Quakers, but we're close. The cool thing is they're much older than we are by average age. So soon, enough of them will die and go to heaven, and we'll be the smartest people in the United States. Really? Then, Christian generic. Anybody else who said they're Christian. That includes the mega churches, any non-denominationals, anyone. The Orthodox are in there as well. Thank you. Any other Christian generic. The red, none or no religious affiliation, and the gray at the very bottom is other. These are other faiths, like Islam, Judaism, Buddhists, etc. Right? So, if you look at the other faiths, there's a misnomer in the United States that Islam is booming. Muslims in the United States are still less than 1% of the nation, right? It's barely 9%, barely 0.9% of the nation, right? It's amazing, okay? What stunned Pew Forum, these are the waters in which we're swimming, and you as Southern Californians, you know this because it's your fault. What stunned Pew Forum is the fastest growing religious group in the United States is no religious affiliation. Okay? No religious affiliation. So, when Pew Forum has done work on this, I did a major presentation with the Pew Forum researchers who talked about this a year and a half ago. Of the 20% who self-identified as none or no religion, half had no childhood religious initiation ceremony, like baptism or confirmation, or communion, or christening, or half, right? Had no childhood religious initiation ceremony, including bat mitzvah, bar mitzvah, etc. 65% of those who are or were married had no religious marriage ceremony. So who married them? Justice of the peace. Their friends, exactly. Forrest is on it, or their friends did, exactly, right? 68% are in their 20s and 30s, but they're not all young adults. But they are the majority, okay? And this is what stunned Pew Forum researchers. 78% said that they were spiritual persons and that some God or higher power exists. We thought these were all atheists. They're not. We thought they're all from the Bay Area in Southern California. They're not. A lot of them are. Some of them are huge. But not, right? 78% said they believe there's a God, they consider themselves a spiritual person, or a higher power exists. These are people of faith, just choosing not to self-identify as affiliated with Community Presbyterian Church. Okay? So these are the waters in which we're swimming. I want to put forward a schema, and I want us to look especially at the changing role of the pastor, because I think her role, his role, is changing dramatically, and we'll talk about that. Doug Paget wrote 3 years ago, published Church in the Inventive Age. He also then used that as his rubric, and then wrote Community in the Inventive Age, Evangelism and Preaching in the Inventive Age. Doug Paget doesn't have a PhD, but he very well could have, because that's what PhDs do, right? We have one idea and we hit it 18 different ways, okay? But his work is, I think, worthwhile. He argues that there have been 4 ages in the United States: an agrarian age before 1812, the industrial age from the 1800s to the 1940s, the information age post-World War II, and then the inventive age in the 21st century. That's where I want to end up. But I want to walk through quickly the shifts, especially pay attention to the role of you who are called to be our teaching elders. So in the agrarian age, Paget notes that in 1800, farmers comprised 94% of the American labor force. In 1800, 94% of us were in agriculture, we were farming. The church was geographically bound. Communities were often ethnic specific. What does it mean the church was geographically bound? Well done. You can only go so far, right? In 1800s, right? So you went to the church that was near you. I don't like the color of the carpet. Too bad. Tom's on it, right? So that's it. That's the church. So you went to the parish. The parish church, that was the idea, right? Communities were often ethnic specific. You know this. There were German communities, and there were, Czech communities. Yeah, exactly. Czech communities, and Bohemians, and Poles, etc. They were often. So this was an ethnic church as well, right? The role of the pastor was a shepherd, because most of these were smaller congregations, and the pastor was the shepherd of the sheep. His role, and it was a him, it wasn't a she. His role was to pastor his flock, right? Then Paget says, in an industrial age, in 1940, farmers comprised 18% of the American labor force. So we went from the 1800s, where it was 94%, to 18% of the American labor force 140 years later. With the rise of urban centers, new large churches are built. The rise of denominations, often in competition with one another, because on this corner was the Baptist Methodist Church, and this opposing corner was Lutheran, the Roman Catholic over here, and Presbyterian, and whatever. So they're all within the same walking distance of each other. And the pastor was foreman or manager, he argues. He cites the 1800s as the switch to the industrial age because the War of 1812, when the United States engaged in a war with Great Britain, suddenly it forced us to create our own industrial age. We had to build factories because up until that point, we sent natural resources to, and they manufactured them and then sold them back to us. Suddenly we go to war with them and we have to create our own. And he says in a matter of years, and historians have backed this up, in a matter of years, the industrial age hit the United States and exploded because of the war with Great Britain. Then we shift to the information age, post-World War II. Doug says, a rise in literacy, the growth of the suburbs and exurbs, the land beyond that, degree inflation. What the heck is degree inflation? There it is, well done, Pat. So like 60 years ago, 70 years ago, a high school diploma of what? That was fine. That got you a good job for the rest of your life, right? Now it's assumed that some kind of master's level degree has to happen in order for you to sustain, okay? At this point still, it's less than a third of the nation's adults in the United States. At the age of 25, only 31% of the nation's adults have a bachelor's degree. Age of 25. They're not Presbyterians. Part of the problem is, we are one of the highest educated churches in the United States. So, I am in Buffalo, New York, and I am there in February. I had a good choice. Agreed to preach at one of our churches. I flew in on a Friday, did a workshop all day for the educators there at Western New York Presbytery. There's snow everywhere. I'm taking back to my hotel Saturday night, and I will go through my toiletries kit, and I realize, oh, I just used up the last of my shaving cream that morning. And so I call down to the front desk of the hotel, Holiday Inn Express, whatever, and say, do you have any shaving cream? And the gentleman, young man said, no, sir, I'm sorry. And I said, is there any place near that I can walk to? And he said, you're going to walk to this place? And I said, yes, I don't have a car, and I have to have shaving cream for the morning. And he said, well, the only place I can think of is a gas station across the freeway, but you have to walk up to the overpass, go over, and come back down. And I said, that's fine, right? So it's almost 10, and it's Buffalo in February, and I put all my clothes on that I possibly can. I walk up the side of the freeway, cross over, and walk down. I go to a gas station that has still a little convenience store. I walk in, and there's a woman there behind the glass. She has huge hair. I think you should be in Texas. But anyway, she says, what are you doing here? Because she's looking out at the pumps and sees no car, right? And I said, well, I just, behind all this plexiglass, do you have toiletries back there? And she goes, honey, what are you doing here? And I said, well, is that like a little can of shaving? I just want some shaving cream. And she goes, how did you get here? I said, I walked. She goes, you walked here? And I said, yeah. And I just need a shaving cream right behind you. And she goes, why are you here? And I said, for a can of shaving cream right behind you, so I can see it. And she says, no, why are you here? And I said, oh, well, I'm from Atlanta, but I taught all day today. Oh, you're a teacher? I said, well, yeah. And then I'm preaching tomorrow morning at a Presbyterian church. And she goes, you're a preacher? And I said, well, yeah, sort of. And she said, okay. She goes, you're a Presbyterian preacher? And I said, well, yeah. And she goes, you don't look like a Presbyterian preacher. And I missed it. I wasn't bright enough to say, well, what does a Presbyterian preacher look like? I just said, well, I just need the same thing. And then, Holy Spirit kicked in, finally. I was attentive. And I said, oh, I think the church where I'm preaching isn't very far. You should come. You should come. I'm preaching tomorrow morning. You should come. I think there's one at 11. I think there's one earlier, but the one at 11, you should come. And she said, to a Presbyterian church? And I said, yeah. I said, I think it's, I think you might enjoy it. And she said, oh, sweetie, I can't go to a Presbyterian church. And I said, why? And she said, I'm not smart enough to be a Presbyterian. Right? And I thought, actually, there are a lot of dumb Presbyterians. I can give you a list. Okay? But if that's how she knows us, then it's part of our dilemma, right? So, degree inflation, mobility of the society, we're moving around more than we ever have, emergence of evangelical and mega churches, and in the information age, the pastor then becomes another source of information. The pastor is supposed to be a teacher and a preacher to give more information, right, in the information age. Paget says we are no longer in the information age. If you think your job on Sunday morning is just to give more information, you are missing it. Okay, there's lots of information out there. People don't need more information. Paget says we are in the inventive age. It's a different way of being for the leaders of Christ's church. We who are called to be ruling elders and teaching elders. Paget says in the inventive age, the role of the church leader is to help persons connect to deeper meaning and developing a truer sense of belonging and identity. That is what is key to the inventive age. People do not want more information. What they want is to find out what this means, and do I belong? Do I matter? Do I belong here? Do I belong to you? Inventive age churches are focused less on physical location, denomination, and information, and more on participation. I'll talk about denominational stuff later on this evening when I'm privileged to be in worship with you. Paget said, and this makes perfect sense for a guy who is non-denominational, started an emergent congregation, right? He's saying it's less about physical location, denomination, and information, and more on participation. He says authenticity, agility, resilience, and imagination characterize this age. People are yearning to find out if we are real, if we're authentic. So I am preaching at Westminster Presbyterian Church. I know we're not very imaginative. Westminster Presbyterian Church. Oh, you know this, by the way, right? The most popular name for a Presbyterian church in the United States? First. There it is. First. Yeah. All about the kingdom of God for us. Pardon me. Because it means that there's going to be, of course. Thank you very much. The weird thing is, I also was in Cincinnati. They've got a first and a third, but second closed. And they're like, shouldn't third then move up to second? Anyway. Authenticity, agility, resilience, and imagination characterize this age. I was at Westminster Presbyterian Church in Arlington, Texas. I was doing research on young adults. Young woman was there, had joined the church. She's an aberration. She was not one of the religiously unaffiliated. She had chosen to affiliate with us. She grew up Methodist. Fell in love when she was in high school, dated the same guy through high school, same guy, University of Texas, Austin, love of her life. They got married when they were seniors, huge wedding, gonna have kids right away. She found out just after the honeymoon that he had been cheating on her for 3 years. Divorces him 3.5 weeks after the honeymoon. She is 22 years old. Never thought she'd be divorced in her life. And she is horrified and humiliated. She loves the church. She made her way, after 1.5 years of staying away from any church, she made her way into Westminster Presbyterian Church. She sat deliberately in the very back row of the last pew. And she waited, she timed it. She told me later, I timed it. I know how you people start. And she waited until after the call to worship so she could sneak in. And she said, thank you, Jesus, they don't pass the peace. Because she was talking about you. Okay? And as soon as the benediction is pronounced, she's gone, right? She went to 3 consecutive worship services. At this third service, the pastor got up and she said to her congregation, "I'm so glad you're here today. I hope you'll be praying for me this morning. I've been struggling with this Bible text for the past 2.5 weeks. And let's see what the Holy Spirit's going to do, because I don't like what I'm going to preach this morning." She said she remembers looking up and looking at this woman in her Geneva gown at the front of the sanctuary of Westminster Presbyterian Church. And she said, "I was amazed because I had never heard one of you people admit that you struggled with the biblical text." She said, "I thought, if she can be real, then maybe I can be real too." And she stayed. And she endured the passing of the peace. And they got to know her. And she became a member, and then a deacon. And she talked to other young women who thought their lives were over as well. Right? Authenticity, agility, resilience, and imagination characterize this age. The pastor is facilitator. The moderator just said this. The pastor becomes a facilitator of open source faith experiences. The pastor's role, his role, her role, is to help persons participate in different faith experiences and then to discern, right? Because not all faith experiences are worthy of our attention. Some of them are stupid, okay? But some of them are worthwhile. So how do you discern? In the information age, in the post-information age, the issue is not more information. You aren't going to convince me by giving me more data. What you're going to do is you're going to be real with me, you're going to be agile, you're going to be resilient, and you're going to help me discern what is worthy of my attention and what is not. William James, American philosopher, teacher, says, "Wisdom is embodied in a person who knows what is worthy of his or her attention and what is not." That's a wise person. Follow them. He says, unwise people pay attention to everything equally. You can tell who they are because they're scrambling from one thing to the next and they are always exhausted. He said, that is not a person worth following. Wisdom comes in discernment. Your ability to decide, is this worthy of my attention? Not so much. But this is worthy of my attention. Please.
What is the meaning of the word open source?
Oh, nice.
And is that contradictory to what William James was saying?
Oh, nice. So, thank you. That's a great question. Tell me your name.
Rob.
Rob asks, what is the meaning of open source faith, and is it contradictory to what William James is saying? Nice. Paget says open source faith. Open source faith is the realization that God speaks through everything, everyone. In the inventive age, Paget says, there is no such thing as a separation between sacred and secular. As soon as you say, well, that's of God, and that's of Satan, and they're never going to meet. You know, actually, the world, bad, yuck, patooey. Heavenly things, sacred things. It's why, and I love praise music, but it's why our Christian music stations, etc., Christian radio, etc., are plummeting among millennials because they think it's a false binary when you say sacred versus secular. It's why they say, no, I can see God. I can see God work in all kinds of places, even in some of the hardest places. Please?
So there's the sense of going back to our ancient faith.
That was good. The vice moderator said there's this sense of going back to our ancient faith, right? Because in the ancient world, in the first worlds, we didn't talk about this separation of sacred versus secular. It was all God's. When Jesus is messing around and he gets quizzed and says, show me the coin, and whose face is this? And they say Caesar's. And he says, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto what is. And they walked away and they asked him no more questions. They realized he got them. Because Caesar has just this coin. God has everything else, including the coin. Okay? That's why what Jesus said, yeah, render to Caesar what is Caesar's, render unto God what is God's. And the religious leaders, executives and presbyteries, etc., were like, dang it, and they walked away. Okay? Because they realize he's right. Everything belongs to God. There is no sacred versus secular. Okay? So open source base really is, Travis is saying, God's communicating with us, we've got to be attentive. Then the great question, thank you, Rob, is that contradictory to what William James is saying? I don't think so. Because I think what James is saying is, if it's true that God is revealing God's self through a variety of ways, your job is to find out, to make sure that that is God's revelation. Because there are a lot of messages coming at us all the time. And some of the messages are not God messages. I was counseling a young woman, a friend of the family, and I knew her well, and they were having a hard time finding a counselor. She had tried to commit suicide twice, and they couldn't find a counselor. And I'm not a licensed counselor. I'm a professor of educational ministry at Columbia Seminary. But the family knew me, and she knew me. And so they said, Rodger, would you talk to her? And I said, no, because that's not my forte. My doctorate is in educational ministry. I don't do this. And they said, yes, but you have a relationship with her. She said, I trust Rodger. And so I went to our pastoral care professors, Bill Harkins and Skip Johnson, and said, okay, this is what's being proposed. What do you think? And Bill said, Rodger, honestly, I trust you. I'll be willing to do your verbatims. I'll go after every session and talk with you if you want me to do that. But I think it's worthwhile for you to pursue this because she needs somebody she can trust right now. And I'm like, okay. My first session with her, we got to her suicide attempts, and I said, Jen, why? Because God told me to hurt myself. Absolutely convinced. Okay? And I said, oh, Jen, that's not God. She goes, it's not? And I said, no. She said, how do you know? Open text, Jeremiah 23. For surely I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. Plans for your welfare and not for your harm. Good job, Bible scholars. And to give you a future with hope. That is the word of the Lord, Jen. She said, how long has this been in there? Oh, for a while. She said, huh. Her mom told me later, she hand wrote that out onto 3x5 cards, and she's posted them everywhere. For surely I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. Plans for your welfare and not for your harm, to give you a future with hope. I am convinced, Jen was convinced, that the voice that told her to hurt herself was God's. What she needed was help with discernment. Does that make sense? Does that help, Rob? I'm going to go. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So now I'm on trends, and I've got, 20 minutes, less than 20 minutes to go. So just some quick trends. Trends are worthy of our attention. Fads are not. Fads are fun, but they're not worthy of our attention. I think we have to pay attention to these trends. One of my trends, and so I have 8 of them. I drop one every once in a while, I pick up another, from tribal education to immigrant education. I think we are adept at educating for the tribe. And I think we miss the immigrants. And when I mean immigrants, I'm including persons from other lands. But what I think is, right, if it's true that we've got a lot of people out there who are not church folk, we make a lot of assumptions about church. And we tend to talk tribal all the time. So my image is Gloria Patri, because I was in Sunnyvale, California, doing a focus group with young adults who were not in churches. And afterwards, this young man said, hey, I want to ask you, I've been to a couple churches, and this woman's name appeared in both bulletins, but she never stood up. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, no, seriously, one was a Methodist church, and one was this other kind of church, but her name was in both of those, and I don't know how she gets around. And I said, what is her name? What's her name? And I said, when that appears, did the congregation stand up and sing something like, glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to... They both sang that. And I said, yeah, that's actually Latin for the first line. Glory be to the Father is Gloria Patri. He goes, oh, cool. Turned around and walked away. I found out later he works for Google. I was, dude, you couldn't have Googled that? Hello? Right? But then one of my friends back at seminary said, Rodger, I bet it occurred to him that even Google wasn't going to help him because it was too tribal. Right? So we have to watch our language. I don't want us to get rid of our language. I love some of our great words like redemption and creation and salvation. These are wonderful words. What I hope we do is we realize that our folks don't always know them. And so we have to teach them the code. I realized this the first time my little brother in Seattle introduced me to Starbucks. I left Seattle before Starbucks started. And Garfield took me into a Starbucks, one of the first ones in downtown Seattle years ago, and Garfield said, go ahead, order. And I said to the young woman, the barista, I'll take a medium. She said, we don't have mediums. I said, yes, you do. I can see them in the cups behind you. It's between the large and the small. She said, no, sir. Here at Starbucks, that's a grande. Garland went over and said, you are totally embarrassing me. Then he stepped up and said, I'll do a grande, double shot, no whip, skinny, right? And walked away. And I'm like, what language was that? And I realized I'm not part of the, but I learned, right? Because I want to belong. We have to shift from assuming everyone around us understands our tribal language. Second one, I think there's a shift from mission out there to mission right here. Please understand, I'm not putting forward false binaries. I'm not saying mission out there versus mission right here. I am saying that we have to be able to hold these together, right? There are a lot of persons who are saying, I don't understand why you choose to focus your attention on places far away when the need is right here. It's not either or, okay? I'm not saying that we have to focus on the United States first and make America great again only, right? That's not the point. We are part of a global economy, part of a global world. We're called to that. Matthew 28, Jesus says, sending you out, right? Pantatau ethne, to all the nations, right? So, mission out there and mission right here, it's got to be both and. 3, from reason spirituality to mystery-filled spirituality. This is the sanctuary, this is the nave of St. Elias Antiochian Orthodox Church in Decatur, about 20 minutes away from where I used to live when I was teaching at Columbia Seminary. This is an Orthodox church. It's the Antiochian Orthodox Church, which means they're not ethnic specific. They aren't Russian Orthodox, Greek Orthodox, etc. But did you know this? The Orthodox are seeing right now a little hiccup in membership among young adults, mostly out of evangelical backgrounds. And the Archpriest, Father John, when I take my students and we visit, he would say, some of your students are coming to us. I said, oh, good. He said, yes. Now, we are glad that they have come to find the one true church, but we're sort of wondering, why do you think they're coming? And I said, Father, I think it's because you do mystery really, really well. Part of the problem of being Presbyterian-flavored Christians is that we give great attention to primacy of the mind. I love that about us. I honor that in this 500th year of the Protestant Reformation. But we are in a time of mystery, awe, and wonder. And that is incredibly powerful. So, away from reasoned spirituality to mystery-filled spirituality. Far Side cartoons stopped any number of years ago. I still love them. Gary Larson, who grew up in Seattle, went to Queen Anne High School. He was the developer, creator of Far Side cartoons. There's a little kid trying to get into Midvale School for the Gifted. The door says pool, and he's obviously pushing. I think years ago, people wanted credentials. And this comes from a seminary professor, right? Former seminary professor. Right now, I don't think folks are as impressed with our seminary credentials. What they want to know is, are you real? Can you preach in a way I can understand? Do you love Jesus? Can I see that? Do you love me? Can I see that? Right? Credentials? I'm not dissing credentials. But I'm also saying, I think right now we're talking a lot about what it means to be gifted. Courtney, blonde hair, blue eyed, beautiful young woman, several years ago, seminary student. She does clinical pastoral education in between her second and third year required by her presbytery. She was assigned to Grady Memorial Hospital. Grady Memorial Hospital is the largest public hospital in the state of Georgia. It is the public hospital for the city of Atlanta. It's a wondrous place, and it's a very difficult place to be a physician, a nurse practitioner, a nurse, a staff person, and a patient, and a chaplain. Courtney has 2 courses in pastoral care done. She's a chaplain now on her 3rd day after orientation. She walks into this beautiful room. There is a gorgeous older adult woman, African American, there lying in bed, looking up, sitting up, smiling. Holding her hand is a handsome, handsome old adult African American man. She steps in, blonde hair, blue eyed, petite, chaplain, and she says, "Hello, my name is Courtney. May I visit with you? I'm one of the chaplains here." Handsome African American gentleman holding this gorgeous lady's hand looks up at her and he says, "Little girl, this has been going on for 64 years, and she is the love of my life, and I have never spent a day without her in 64 years. And last week, she stopped recognizing me. If you can tell me how God is in this, you can stay. If you can't, I prefer you just move on." Courtney was telling me this after the end of her first week. I said, "Courtney, what did you do?" And she said, "I wanted to move on. I wanted to move on. But my legs wouldn't go. They wouldn't work. I was so mad. I was like, move on. You don't belong here. What are you doing? You have no idea what you're doing. You shouldn't be doing any of this. Just move on. Leave these people alone." And she said, "I couldn't move." And I looked up and I looked at them and I looked at how beautiful she was. I looked at how handsome he was and how much they loved each other. It was so obvious. And all I could think of was my grandparents. They love each other just the same way. And then I thought about what would happen for my grandmother not talking about his grandfather anymore. And she said, "Rodger, I was looking down, I was trying to move, but I couldn't go. I was trying to hold it together, and I just began to." She said, "I was so embarrassed." Supposed to help them. I couldn't think of any Bible verses. I couldn't think of a prayer. All I could do was stand there and just cry. And then I looked up, and I saw these huge tears streaming down his handsome face. He looked at me, and he held out his hand, and he said, "Chaplain, I'd be honored if you'd stay." And she said, "My legs worked." I pulled up a chair, and I sat down and held his hand, and I held her hand, and Rodger, for the next 35 minutes, we just cried. And then I prayed with them and left. "Was that okay?" And I said, "Oh, Courtney, that was beautiful. You were created for this ministry. You were built for this. You were put together in your mother's womb exactly for this moment. You have the gifts for this." She's serving as an associate pastor in North Carolina in Raleigh. Fine, long-term planning, short-term planning. You get, this is a term, right? It really is a clinical term. It's called presbyopia, right? Presbyopia is the ability to see crystal clear things that are far away, but you can't see things that are right in front of you, okay? I get long-term planning, but right now, agility says we've got to be thinking about what's going on right among us. I think strategic planning needs to be about 6 months to 12 months out, not 5 years, okay? So the ability to think about 3 to 6 months, what is the Lord calling us to? What is the Spirit calling us to right now? Constantly assessing, that's what we're looking at. 6, from mass evangelism to one-on-one evangelism. I love this. One of my best friends from McCormick Seminary, a classmate who graduated with me, her first call was to the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association out of the Cove in Asheville, North Carolina. Her first job was to work with the crusade staff. She lost that job in a year and a half. And I talked to her and said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "Yeah, we have downsized and virtually almost closed our crusade staff because nobody's asking for crusades anymore. That time is gone." And I said, "Well, I'm sorry, are you looking for other work? Do you want me to put your PIF, personal information form, out to some churches?" And she goes, "Actually, I think I have a call in the organization to the Congregational Evangelism Office. It is exploding." And I said, "What is that?" And she said, we go to Emmaus, a team of 2 persons. We send them out to congregations that invite us. Over the course of 2.5 years, they contract with us. We go back and forth about 6 times. We work first with the pastoral staff and the congregational leaders, the session, the consistory, the board. We work with them first, and we start doing these conversations with other groups, young people, children, older adults, middle-aged adults, women, etc., men, having conversations about how you talk about Jesus with persons, in most cases, whom you already know. She said, that's the need right now. She said, not in a mean-spirited or guilt-ridden or shame-based way, right? And this is an Asian American, so I know shame, okay? Oh my goodness, the Asians in this room, we have shame down to an art form, okay? So don't mess with me on my shame. But she said, we're helping people, and congregations of all kinds are intrigued by this, and they're asking for help. It's not mass evangelism, it's one-on-one. Again, not either or, but where we're shifting in these days. 2 more, I'm done. From high tech to high touch. This came not from me, this is James Naisbitt, wrote this in the last century, my goodness, in a book called Megatrends. Naisbitt said, with the rise of high tech commensurate is going to come the rise of high touch. And that's happening right now. People are valuing, like they never have before, putting up vegetables in cans, jarring jams, handmade goods. In the 1940s and 50s, something machine-made was like, whoa, look at that, that's perfect. Now people want handmade goods. They want this sense of high touch. High tech is a given, but high touch? So, you know what those are? Oh, come on. U.S. You're so Southern California. Of course you would say pot stickers. No. Oh, good job. They're pierogies. Yes, okay? It's white people's pot stickers, okay? I'm speaking of Polish pot stickers. Okay, Japanese gyoza, Korean mandu, right? So yeah. So I was privileged to be at the ordination installation service for Kristen Strobel, one of my grads. She's serving the First Presbyterian Church of Poland, Ohio, right? And after the service, ordination installation, they had a big, huge, this is a little church in the middle of rural Ohio. They had a wonderful potluck supper. They brought all these, and there were 4 plates of pierogies, okay? And they were, I never had them before. They were delicious. It's dough, and then you put stuff in them. The one I liked the most was, it was sort of like kimchi. It was sauerkraut, a little bit, but it was really, really tasty. Kimchi would have been better, but still, it was good, okay? And so I'm leaving, right? And this woman comes up and she gives me, I love this. Elvis driving me back to Pittsburgh to catch the last flight to Atlanta so I can teach in the morning. This is Sunday night. And she gives me a plate of pierogies and other food from the supper. I love that. I love that. Okay. Kristen gave me a hug and said, Rodger, you have to take that. And I said, Kristen, this is good food. Right? So I go to Pittsburgh Airport. I'm catching the last flight out, last flight to Atlanta. I'm watching my time. It's almost deserted. I go through TSA. I put my rollerboard, my robe, my backpack, and then a gray tray and put the food right there in the plastic bag, and it goes through. Okay. I go through security, and I'm waiting. I get my rollerboard, my robe, my backpack, and I'm waiting for the food. Right, and it's not coming out. And there's a lovely woman in her blue shirt behind. I can see. I'm watching her, and she's watching, and she's looking. And I guess it must have been like this industrial strength foil. And she looks over at me and says, "Sir, is that yours?" And I said, "Yes." And she's an African-American woman, looked beautiful. And she said, "What is it?" And I said, "Oh, I just came from a church in Ohio. It's church food. And I need to get on this last flight to Atlanta. Otherwise my dean gets really mad if I miss the flight because I'm not going to teach in the morning." And she goes, "It's church food." And she sends it through, right? And she comes up and looks at it, opens the bag, and sees the foil, and she goes, "Oh, I got that foil." I said, "Yeah, that probably messed you up." And I'm ready to go, right? And she goes, "It's church food?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." "You just had this?" "Yes, ma'am." "From a church in Ohio?" "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "I'll buy it off you." And I said, I was going to eat that on the flight down. Now, no, thank you, but I was going to buy that. And then I totally should have reported her. She said, "Well, sir, you came from a church?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "Didn't the Lord Jesus talk about sharing?" And I said, "Excuse me, ma'am, the Lord Jesus, Savior of the world, never talked about sharing pierogies in the Pittsburgh airport." And she goes, "Fine," and go. In a world of high tech, people are yearning for. Come on. We were created for this. That's who we are. We know high touch. We know how to do this. That's how we were built. That's why the Holy Spirit came to us on Pentecost, right? One more, last one, and I'm done. This whole idea, I can't go there, sorry, maybe I'm going to skip. From discipleship to apostleship. So this is my messing around. Discipleship, on the right side of the screen, there's a movie from the last century called The Blues Brothers. Throughout the Blues Brothers, they have a phrase, "We're on a mission." Oh, good job, mission from God. I say we are participating in the Missio Dei. Lest I be too tribal, that's Latin. What is Missio Dei? Mission of God. Very good, yeah. We're participating in God's mission, right? This is not my idea. Dr. James T., who is 2 presidents ago from the Luther Seminary in St. Paul, Minnesota, that's their Princeton. With ELCA, Lutheran Church of America. Dr. T says the 20th century was a discipleship century. Discipleship by its nature, and I love discipleship, right? But discipleship by its nature says, okay, everyone, you do what? Come to us, and we'll disciple you, and we'll help you know who Jesus is. Dr. T says the 21st century is an apostleship century. An apostle literally is someone who is sent. He says we have got to act like people who are sent into the world. So when I am driving back, when I was driving back to campus at Columbia along Memorial Drive, I would pass these little storefront churches, and because I'm so judgmental and so stupid, I would look at, First Apostolic Zion, God the Lamb, worthy church. So I'm like, oh, good grief, this is ridiculous. Just choose a tradition and be consistent, right? But now when I've seen those churches, I see the word apostolic, and I think, they get it. I understand First Presbyterian Church. I understand Westminster, Trinity, Prairie Village. But what if we were apostolic Presbyterians? What if we took seriously Matthew 28, that we are being sent? 8 trends that I think are worthy of our attention as we are being called to be leaders of Christ Church in this inventive age. You've been really kind to listen and have a conversation with me. And lest we be late for the business of the church, which is still important, I want to call us to a break. But I'll be around and enjoying conversation with you, and then we'll talk again this evening. Let's pray together.